Hello, hello. Good morning. It's almost afternoon. It's 11:40 here. Today's Tuesday, July 28th. Whenever I face away from that camera, it just decides to focus on something else, but that's okay. Tuesday, July 28th, almost noon. Day 4,932 days in a row. Love that number. Always going to say it. Hey, Omar, welcome to the stream. We're still working on this painting here today. And my reference went away again. Where'd it go? There it is. Okay. Make sure it gets bigger. Yes. And I want that little block to go there too. Although, okay. That's fine. There we go. That's fine. So working on this painting today, this is going to be day 2 on a series of paintings using that reference there. Multiple photos that I took of a friend of mine. And yeah, I'm going to be doing, I don't know how many paintings of this, maybe 4, 5, 6 until I feel like I've figured out enough for that painting, right? For the series, until I've kind of, I don't know, mined as much information from it as possible. This is what I want to do with this painting, or at least all of the paintings. Now, the tough thing that I'm tasking myself with this painting and the subsequent paintings, because it's all about emotion. I talked before on previous streams of where this image came from, you know, the reasoning for the image and kind of like the narrative behind it. But today, on this one, and probably the next couple sessions I spend on it, however long it takes, I need to figure out how to take these words like helplessness, caring, and introspection, you know, like an inner thought, all of these different words, and then translate those into the fundamentals of painting. So fundamentals as in drawing, color, edges, value, you know, these fundamentals. Like, how does helplessness or caring translate in that way? I'm not sure. I don't know. You know, there's certain words that I can look at or that I can talk about, and I think they're bigger emotions, right? And we can kind of, you know, depending on our nationality, where we live, you know, all of the things that we feel within our life, right? Depending on who we are as people, some of these bigger words, these emotions, we would translate them completely different into paint. For example, happy could be like yellow or orange or red, you know, like happy colors, right? Sad colors could be blue or black or gray, you know, and I think a lot of people can relate to those associations, happy being yellow, sad being gray, right? So, and that's a very simple way of adjusting emotions to these fundamentals. Very simple. But when we're dealing with words such as introspection, right? What value do you set with introspection? What color do you set with introspection? I have no idea. We're getting into the grayness of art. We're in this area where it's all about the artist. It's all about our ideas, our specifics, our life, and how we decide to adjust things, right? So, and that's an area that I want to be in. That's an area that I'm enjoying right now. And along with that, I want to push myself a little bit on this painting, okay? I'm going to push myself a little bit. We can always push ourselves in a multitude of ways. And on this painting, I want to push the start of it a little bit further. Last week's painting, or the last painting before this, it was very simple, looked like watercolor. I was really focusing on all these brush strokes. Like, being very focused with my initial brush strokes. I want to do that here, but I also want to use a much larger brush. Yeah, this one feels good. What about this one? That one doesn't feel too bad. We'll have to see how both of these kind of take on paint. Hey, Michael, welcome. Hi, Chris. Hi, Vincent. Vincent is being lazy today. I haven't seen him most of the day, or most of the morning, and I'm expecting that he's probably getting hungry soon. So I'm not sure how to adjust these, or how to take these emotions into these fundamentals of painting. And I'm going to just leave it up to, continual thought about it. It could come to me within a conversation that we have during the stream. It could come to me within, sleeping on it, waking up in the morning, that kind of thing, and getting the idea at that point. I'm not sure. We'll see. I'm just going to kind of like let it flow. Okay. Just going to keep thinking about it, have the painting up, and yeah, hopefully at one point I'll have an epiphany and I'll say, okay, this is introspection to me. This is what it looks like to me. So lots of paint, mixed up lots of paint in that brush. And it actually, look how sharp that is, those bristles. Let's put like a big stroke down. I'm going to start in the shadow areas. I like the shadow areas. And I'm going to go a bit, large and crazy on this. Okay. Really going to push today a little bit, making a bit of color that's all over the place right now. Just thinking about value and getting the color somewhat close. Thinking about these brush strokes as well. I want them to go down within, a very expressive kind of way. There's a lot of this I'll have to recover. When you paint this way, when we're painting expressively, like really big strokes, right? It's difficult because especially when we have this drawing down here, we run into this kind of fear where we have to like recover the drawing. So I just covered up that scar, which is probably is the most important part of this whole painting. I have confidence that I can get it back. So big strokes, just really going for it here, really throwing a bunch of stuff down. I mean, it's oil paint. We can move it around. We can scrape it back off. And this is me telling myself this, right? This is me saying and kind of bolstering my bravery for this. Darker here. I'm not worried about, the darkest dark, the lightest light. I'm just putting in big strokes. I'm thinking about direction and value, probably. That's only two things I'm really thinking about. Shape as well. Placement. Also drawing. You're always going to think about drawing. So yeah, I'm thinking about a lot of stuff. Okay. Definitely. That was terrible. That thing right there, way off, way off. We're into the shirt there. That's not part of the neck. A little bit more focus than that, Chris. A little bit more focus. I was just talking about that yesterday because I had to do some corrections on this drawing. And I showed in yesterday's stream, if you missed it, how I go through and do like digital corrections within my drawing to compare what I put down first with the reference and to see how it went from there. And I feel like I want a blue. I'm pushing colors in some ways. Like it's lighter over here and a bit blue. So let's go more blue than it actually is. Really throw that down. And that needs to be warmer, definitely, and neutralized with black. Very simple. Not really thinking a lot about this on the color, just really kind of putting things down here. hoping things will happen. Like the shape under this nose is going to be important. Just obliterated the nostril. That's fine. That's fine. Yeah, let's even flow into the background there. On this painting, I may bring in the background. The last painting, I didn't bring in the background. We'll see. We'll see how we decide if that's going to fit with the narrative. On the last painting, the background we left out completely because we're talking about how to deal with it, and I really liked that it was just empty space, and that felt like a space for thoughts to move into of the portrait for the person, like this introspective space, this silence, this quietness. And we talked about that within the last painting. I thought that was a lot of fun. See how the top of the lips or the top lip, because it's in shadow, gets a little bit darker. So I'm going to bring in some darker values here. It could be much more intense than that. Oof, not really shaping my brush the way I should. Michael asks, do you think about temperature when you were drawing? I mean, warm lights, cool shadows, for example. Not when I'm drawing. I really kind of separate it out in my head when I'm drawing. You know, the drawing part of the painting is just drawing, really. Trying to think about accuracy. The only thing on temperature that I was thinking about with the drawing was I didn't want the drawing to show through if I need to scrape back, right? So I didn't want to put like a very dark value down for the drawing, just in case I needed to scrape back to white. I can lighten that up a bit, make it more intense. But yeah, I built kind of like this method I've been using for years where I separate that aspect of drawing out a little bit. I mean, we're always drawing when we're painting. We can't get away from that. You know, putting that stroke down took, you know, it's in a direction, it's the shadow shape. It could have gone up just a little bit more, right? It has a width, a height to it, a length to it. It has everything to it that drawing has. So we have to think about that. Because if we completely separate drawing out, we get this perfect drawing down, and then we just like let it go when we're painting, you know, within reason, because I am being a lot more expressive right now than I normally start a painting with. But yeah, I still think about placement. I think I do have some idea of where I want things to go. For example, like this ear, right? That last stroke, I just, you know, my brain turned off for that one. Because excuse me. Wow, sorry about that. The important thing about this ear, what gives its entirety of its shape, is where the light is hitting it. So right there, I forget what part of the ear you call it. It's like more part of the head more than anything. Oh, I got a kitten in here. LaFay is showing up. And then this light part that's part of the ear lobe needs to have a better shape to it. You know, recovering that drawing as we go. It's always going to be part of it. I don't think we can, well, no, we can. We can continually move away from the drawing as we get more and more brave on all this, right? It just depends on, you know, what we're trying to do with each painting. You know, like this is right where the top of the eyelid is, that piece of drawing space there. But I really don't care right now. I don't care about that. I'm looking at this entire shadow shape that encompasses that. It goes across the bridge of the nose. It has kind of a warm tone to it. See, now I'm thinking about temperature within this, like warmer, cooler. You can get the values pretty close, but at this point, it's like temperature, just temperature, warm, cool. Is it warmer? Is it cooler? Did I got that value right? And with the block in, that's all we really need to do. Of course, we're thinking hue as well, like the color of the paint. That's always going to be part of it. That's kind of like the initial thing that kind of goes in the background of our head. This is a blue color. This is a red color, you know. This is a orange color, green. Big chunk of black. And then I want like a sienna type thing, so I know if I add my CAD red to it, it'll bring it up to that. So this could be the darkest dark. This back here on the back of the head, this hair is super dark, right? Omar, Chris, I will send you a channel on YouTube teaches oil painting in an easy way. Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm always up for checking out the other ways that people teach this. I mean, I can always learn. We both can always learn about it, right? Definitely. Thank you. I appreciate that. Let's see if this is too dark. Yeah, I think that could disrupt the entire balance of the whole painting. I mean, the only other dark thing here is probably within the shape of the mouth. Okay, okay, baby. LaFay wants to make an appearance, obviously. I just fed her. I just gave you food, baby. You just want attention. Oh, she does. Look at that. My goodness. She does want attention. She's just like all over me right now. Getting in the camera, baby. You're in the camera. Right. You're right. Sorry. We're going to interrupt the painting for a moment to love on Kitten. Well, they're not really kittens anymore. They're 4. What are you, 3 or 4? You're 4 now. 4 years old. Show everybody. You can purr in the mic. Okay. You go get some water. Okay. Yeah, so that dark color may be a bit too dark. Let's lighten it up some. I want it closer to gray, so I'm going to add white. Whoa. Boy, that killed it. That killed that whole color. Now it's into a purple. Okay, it's not bad. It's not bad. Not bad. I'm trying to convince myself it's not bad. You see how, okay. I want to show you this. This is actually pretty cool. Right here, this area of paint, super thick, right? And it's all about the thickness of the paint, that color alone. But then the strokes above it, you see how it brings in a lot of the white of that paper and the value changes? We can use that, you know? We don't have to sit here and like mix up a color that's a little bit lighter to tell our audience that, hey, this is the same color, but it gets lighter here. See, we just, barely touch the canvas. It's not just about, thinking about paint in this way, like you would paint a wall or something. It's all about like covering up the white of the paper. And that's not the reason why we do things, right? We can express not only with the color that we're putting down, but also, see, I don't like the beginning of that stroke. It's a very sharp line. That didn't help it that much. Anyway, I'll get to it. We can express within the weight or the pressure that we put down on the canvas when we're putting the brush stroke down. So finding that nuance within pressure as we're putting brush strokes down can really change up how things feel within the painting. We can utilize a very soft stroke and maybe even a continuation of a palette knife to scrape in to pull some of that paint off to get a more soft kind of line on the back there, because we don't want it very hard. Yeah, I'm not sure if I'm going to do the background or not. We'll see. If you guys have ever watched James Gurney work, Gurney, he's like always using these huge brushes with these little tiny paintings. and how he can go in with like the corner of the brush and get, the shapes that he wants is always so much fun. Very influential to see that. I mean, the idea of using a big brush is not something that we haven't heard, right? Where a lot of teachers will tell us use a bigger brush. Think and that helps us think in bigger shapes, because if we're in here with like a two-hair brush, it's all about tremendous detail. But at the beginning, we don't need all that. We don't need all that detail. We're just establishing, the bigger idea. If we can get to something really quickly that tells us how the rest of the painting's going to go, then it's going to give us that deeper understanding of the whole painting. I hate these chunks in the paint there. It's going to give us the deeper understanding of the whole painting really quickly. And then we can make big changes at the beginning when we haven't put a bunch of paint down, when it's easy to make those changes, right? If we're starting in super detail within our painting, it's easy to have like color that's way off or values that are way off. But we've just detailed out this whole area of the painting. And at that point, that area is very hard to adjust. It's like, oh, I put all this work into that area, only to realize later on that the whole value is wrong. Okay, I need to put this kitten out. You can't be here right now, baby. I'm sorry. Come here. Okay, say goodbye. Gotta go. I gotta focus. Okay, sorry about that. Lots of interruptions right away. And so far, nothing has come to me as far as how to describe these particular emotions in this painting right now. I'm just going to move through this painting, thinking about fundamental concerns at first, drawing edges, color, value, getting the block in done, getting the block in here. Once I start getting into detail and I move further in the painting, then hopefully, I'm really hoping that at that point, some ideas will emerge. Thinking about introspection, I'm thinking about calm, caring for one's own body. Ooh, wow, that's something we don't talk about a lot in painting, right? It's this common humanity that comes up within, I think some of the most important paintings on the planet, right? Oh, wow. We can all relate to these ideas, and then the imagery that goes along with it is really influential. Thinking about art in that way. Really love the idea of that. Alizarin crimson and white will make an interesting kind of bluish red, which I see in a lot of places on Caucasian skin, especially in sunlight. It's really intense though. It's a very intense pink. But I want that there. Yeah. And I need purples. I need some purples in here. I don't know if you've noticed, but today's stream is a bit of a ramble, okay? It's not very... I like to make these streams, every piece of content. I want to make something that somebody can listen to or watch and then get an idea for their own work or own painting and, oh, let me try that. That's a good idea. And improve their artwork in some way, right? That's what I'd like to do. But I've been finding lately, like, hey, it's hard to come up with a lot of this every single day. So sometimes it's just, okay, this is a stream about my painting process, right? Or these fundamentals. the next step within this painting, which, it is for me right now all about trying to find that narrative. At the moment right now, you see that tiny temperature difference between neck and finger. Purple, yellow. And when you talk about hue, just that small little temperature change. It speaks to this idea of like, oh, I'm a different thing. This paint shape is now a finger, not a neck. I'm this finger in shadow. And we can, repeat that idea for all of these. And as I've talked before, you can see that I'm thinking about the roundness of those fingers, the cylinders that they are. And as I put down those brush strokes, I also try to describe that. Like if we're thinking about fundamentals of painting, and I've watched a lot of people paint, and I've seen a lot of paintings, and many artists forget that these brushes can be very expressive. The same brush can be expressed like 100 different ways, depending on how you start the stroke and end the stroke, how you shape your brush when you're mixing on the palette, all these things. So, and within that, because we have all this nuance within putting paint down on the canvas, like the simple thing of putting paint on a canvas, right? There's a tremendous amount of nuance within that. We don't think about that when we're painting a wall. We just get a roller and the idea is change the color of the wall. That's it. But with brushes, there's so much more information that we can communicate with just in a simple brushstroke, okay? There has been artists over centuries, millennia, that have thought about like, how can I communicate more with this single brushstroke, and made careers and whole lives based on just putting a brushstroke down. I bet you people like John Singer Sargent, especially, who focus so much on that, the application of paint on a canvas. I am certain that he could tell you 100 different ways to put a brushstroke down. So when we're sitting here, we're doing a finger and it has a top and a side. How can we get that in one stroke? You see that? You see the curvilinear of that? I'm also looking at the shape of that shadow on this finger. Move, go there. So this finger has a shadow shape on it, right? Red lines. And it's curving down. The shadow continues down the side of the finger as well, but that one stroke, like, we can say so much. Don't forget this implement in your hand can be so much. It can say a tremendous amount. If we could be as poetic and elegant with this as possible, I mean, then we can be super lazy with our painting process, right? We don't have to do as much. Oh, I can put 3 strokes down and say, I wish, but there's artists that can put like 3 brush strokes down and say so much more than I can. So much more information can be communicated within that than I can do. Hey, Chris, welcome. Thank you for showing up, for being here, one of the regulars. So this shadow shape down here as well. I don't like what I did there, where I want, 3 different strokes. I could have just focused on one thing there, right? I could also have done that a little bit lighter. So on this finger here, it is a little bit lighter. So still the same bit of paint, right? But now I'm going to barely brush this canvas. Oh, I could have brushed it lighter, I think, so that I can bring in some of the white of the paper, at least try to bring in some of the white of the paper Let's try it on this finger. I want to go against the form this time, so we're going to do multiple strokes. Yeah, the value change. So small and simple. Maybe not easy to do, but these little aspects that we can think about within, the fundamentals of painting that can take our painting to the next level. Every stroke we put down is saying something. What are we saying? What did you say there, Chris? What did you say with that last brush stroke? Well, I don't know. I just threw something down. Okay, cool. It's good that you know that, Chris. But now on the next one, let's be a little bit more sensitive, right? Sensitive with how it goes down. As long as the value's good, for the most part, you'll be fine. You'll be fine. Value is paramount. Value's one of the most important things. I remembering a video that, or painting, a series of paintings that Nicholas Uribe did. It was really interesting because he's got some videos on it. I'm not sure what week he was in during that series of 2 years where he went through and they were doing a painting. He was doing a painting Monday through Friday, every single day. And they were off on the weekend and creating videos, 5 videos a week, which is crazy. Well thought out, wonderful videos. Well, there was one of them where he was trying, experimenting. And I think that was the coolest thing about it. It was all the experimentation within those videos. And he's like, what if I did a painting? It's funny how all of these really cool things start with what if. I love that idea. Just ask what if. So he did like 4 or 5 paintings where he said, okay, I'm going to remove value. Every brushstroke I put down, however the color or temperature change happens, I'm going to keep it all the same value. And the paintings were so interesting. It was such an interesting painting after that. Irreverent Foria. Foria. Wow. Amazing name. Hello, Chris Bevan. Hi. Irreverent Foria. Fantastic. What is the darkest color in your palette? That is ivory black. And it's from Winsor & Newton Winton. And then I'll just go through all of them. Ultramarine Blue by Rembrandt. These are just random tubes. I don't like always buy that for Ultramarine Blue. The next Ultramarine Blue will probably be from Phoenix Artist Oils. This is Alizarin Crimson by M. Graham. Again, that's the only Alizarin Crimson I have, so I'm using that. Winsor Newton Winton Cadmium Red Hue. Winsor Newton Winton Yellow Ochre. Phoenix Artist Oils, what is this? Lemon Yellow or something like that, I think. And then Titanium White from Williamsburg. Why are they different brands? Because it's what I have at the time. That's it. That's all. Super simple. It's all about those specific colors for me. And to get further into that, because I love talking about everything, this is basically the Zorn palette. I paint mostly with the Zorn palette, which is white, titanium white, yellow ochre, cad red, hue, and ivory black. But then I've added this yellow, the alizarin, and the ultramarine to it, because the painting that I'm doing, the series that I'm doing, where figures and hands and direct sunlight, I really need these intensities. Like the Zorn palette, its only accent color or intense color is the red, but I need more than that. So the yellow is important, the getting a little bit more bluish color for the ultramarine, the yellow for some intense oranges that I want, and just intense yellow. And the alizarin is always really good for any kind of portraiture work. I feel like alizarin just kind of comes in handy. Caucasian portraits mainly, okay? So I would not have alizarin on my palette if I was painting a black person. Maybe. I don't know. The sad thing is, I haven't painted a lot of non-Caucasian people. I need to paint less white people. Definitely. I've painted, I've definitely painted a few different races, and it's really interesting. I need to be a little bit more cognizant of that within my paintings. I tell you what, if I knew someone here locally, a friend of mine that was black, I would totally ask them to do the same exact photo shoot, like with this painting here. That would be fantastic. I could dive deep into those skin tones for a multitude of paintings. Heck, even someone with like a very dark tan would be interesting. Older individuals with, skin that's become a little bit more transparent and kind of sags a bit more is still gorgeous. All of that difference in there. It's really nice. Okay. Where are we at? Okay, couple things I want to do here. Thinking about the whole of this image, I'm going to scrape this off up top. Man, I keep catching on stuff with these palette knives. You're not scraping off at all. Let me go back to my smaller palette knife. I think on one of these paintings, I'm going to go back to Yupo paper for a little bit. The great thing about Yupo paper, I don't have to like put anything on it. I can just go for it, right? Like right away. And I can scrape back all the way to white with Yupo. So I might go back to that with Yupo. We'll see. So I'm scraping this off because one of the things that I saw and just forgot about when I was, putting in the hair up there with this composition is, hopefully I can illustrate this. So up here at the top left is a bunch of light kind of going in that direction. Same down here at the bottom with the hands. We got this kind of direction going off this way. Light at the top, light at the bottom. And pretty much all the darker values are moving through the painting like this, right in that area, if you can kind of understand. I wish I could go over my image, but I can only go under it. Baby wipes for easy erase? Let's try. Okay, because I bought some. We'll see. They're fragrance free and they're Walgreens brands. And, they do have soap in them, but I'll try it. But I like this band of darkness here, and I want to kind of repeat that everywhere. Ooh, that does pull out a lot more. Look at that. Pro tip, guys, baby wipes to wipe out. I can even wrap it around my finger here and deal with it that way. I was just thinking about it with my hands. I had no idea, like, bringing it in on the paint. I mean, it has a little bit of soap in it. It feels like it does. It's making sounds like it has soap in it or something, something to clean. No fragrance. I can wipe out here much more. I mean, soap is a solvent. It'll dry. It'll be fine. Maybe in 150 years, hopefully the archivist will go, yeah, in this part of this painting, he really screwed up with those baby wipes. We'll see. And then this shape here underneath the nose. I'll bring in the baby wipes again. But I want to get that sharp edge. Man, that is a cool tip there. And I like how you can shape it. Wow, look at that. That's fantastic. I'm going to use this on my palette to clean my palette off at the end of each session as well. Man, see? All these streams are worth it now. Just found the pro tips from other artists. I'm just doing these streams to learn from everybody else, not to teach you anything. That's the idea. Like, bring in the information. Hey guys, I need help. Okay. All right. What's next? We've established a lot of paint, a lot of stuffs. Okay. A lot of things are in here. Now I want to pull in. I want to move into specifics now. This paint will be wet because it's pretty thick in a lot of places. It'll be wet for at least all the way through tomorrow. I'm almost certain. So I can still mess with the edges and everything of that paint that I've already put down within a lot of time. Now we're going to move to a bit smaller brushes. I want to reestablish this scar here because it's an important part of the painting. I already have a color that's kind of within that value, but I want the intensity to be brought up. Why bring up the intensity? Because I want some focus there. You know, we follow intense colors. The eye kind of goes right to them. The first thing we see is faces and eyes. That's what we look at first. Like the face of a person, number one, and then faces of animals after that. I mean, these are, I was doing a class on, what is it? School of Visual Storytelling with, oh man, I forget the illustrators. But there was a wonderful class that I took on that, and they were talking about how, you know, where the attention goes when people look at like compositions and art and things. And it totally made sense. Like faces are what we look at first. And then from that, like I said, animal faces is number two, because any kind of face we recognize right away. That's where our eyes tend to go. And then after that, it's based in like color, value, intensity. Yeah, it's a great tool. No solvent, just baby wipes. Man. You know, I made those videos about, you know, non-solvent painting like years ago, which still a lot of people make comments on, good and bad, you know, all over the place. And I feel a little bit bad about them because, you know, they're years old and there's so much that I've learned since then. Like maybe I should just do an update video. It's one of those things where, I mean, it isn't like I'm getting a bunch of money from YouTube. Guys, I'll tell you this right away. You know, I've been doing this YouTube thing for I don't know how many years. And I know people that have been doing it for a lot longer than me that have a ton of followers. And the only time that you actually begin to make real money within this game, this YouTube game, is maybe around 500,000 to 1 million followers. That's the only time. That is the only time. I know there's a lot of people out there that think, oh, that Chris guy, he's probably making, you know, $6,000 a month or hundreds of dollars a month on YouTube. And no, I wish. That'd be kind of nice. That would definitely help out with the bills if I was making that much money on YouTube. You know, I got 10K followers. I make about $30 a month off of YouTube. Yep, that's about it. I know others that have around 70 or 80,000 followers and they get around $150 a month. You know, it's like, you think about that and it's like, you know, it's good to get that money. That's fine. That's cool. But that's like one bill. That's not even our electric bill right now in the summertime in Colorado when it's so hot. Yeah, our electric bill's more than that. Yeah, $30 a month is good. We can go out to eat for $30, you know. That's the transition. Okay, focal point here. You see that high contrast? We got that very dark color there against the lighter color. I want to keep that contrast. It's a line. I think that takes the focus right away. Like the very first thing we see is that line, and I want to keep that. Dennis says, I like the way the painting's looking, Chris. Thank you. Thank you. I'll try not to screw it up. Wow. That's a positive thought. Good job, Chris. Keep it positive. That's what you should have said, Dennis. Hey, it looks good so far. Don't screw it up. That's the kind of support I'm looking for. So I made it a little bit more intense. I wanted that to be a little bit more intense. So this is our focal point. And what I'm always a sucker for the sternocleidomastoideus muscle. I know that's a mouthful. Sternum, right? Your sternum is right here. Cleidomastoideus. So masto something is like a muscle that goes underneath your chin, right? There's this beautiful muscle. It's gorgeous on men and women. It starts at the sternum of the neck and goes up behind the ear, and you can see it like right here, this little light area that's right there on the painting. And I want to make sure that we can feel that change in value all the way up to behind the ear. That's the lighter place. So I'll darken up this wonderful triangle that's made here. And we can see how there's a bit of a triangle here. Then we have the esophagus kind of coming in. And it gets a little darker there. Hopefully we can see all that. But sternocleidomastoideus. Omar, if you're listening, check out that muscle, especially with doing comics and thinking about anatomy. It's huge in comic books. Just finished sketch of your reference using grid inspired by Painter's Path. It's good. It's cool. I'm happy. Oh, fantastic. That's good. I'd like to see it. Show it to me or send it in my email. I'm afraid to move to paint. Well, you know what you got to do, Michael, right? When you feel the fear, what do? We move forward. We see that fear door, it looms up, and we go, you know what? Everything that is better in my life, that's going to be awesome, is on the other side of that fear door, and I got to walk through it. I love this like idea of a fear door, and like we make a physical act to like move through it. It's a lot of fun. I always talk about it in that way. But yeah, it's hard. It's like with the last painting, I was like, oh, I don't want to continue working on this and screw up the process, right? Because it was looking so good. But I was like, no, I need to push through that because it could go to the next level of that painting, which it did. I was still happy with it. I think I could have pushed it a bit further though. Or I could screw it up and then I learned something else, right? But yeah, pushing that envelope a little bit. So yeah, your drawing looks good. I'm sure you're super happy with it. Take a photo of it, remember that, and then move forward. We're here to make bad paintings and learn from them, okay? Let's not think, let's not let the end of the journey kill the entire journey, right? I think it's so important. It's really dark here. Shaking brush stroke there. I didn't like that stroke. Not at all. I've gotten in this mode lately where it's like every brushstroke, I'm really thinking about it. Really deepening into this, moment, this meditation of each moment kind of happening. I need to darken up this bottom scar as well. Bring the value down on that to separate it from what I'm putting down. Dennis, you won't screw it up. No, I mean, Dennis, he has a chance to screw it up, okay? I mean, it's really nice that you said that because hopefully we can give Michael some kind of bravery, like hype him up, right? You got this, Michael. You got this. But that chance of screwing it up is there. We have to face that. I love the analogy. I heard this in one of the self-help books that I read years ago. If you want to hit the game-winning home run in the World Series, you also have to be willing to strike out in the World Series, because both can happen at the same time. We put ourselves in those spaces so that we have a chance for greatness, for the next level of us, whatever that is. And if we don't step up to the plate, if we don't swing that, we'll never know. We have to figure that out. But you got this, Michael. You got it. I mean, it's one of these things, and I heard that someone commented on one of my videos to the effect that they didn't want to. Oh, I'd have to look at the comment again. I'd have to find it. It's like buried in a million comments, right? But it was something to the effect where they felt like they were moving through this art thing and it was all luck based. And a lot of fear comes out of that because, yeah, sometimes we get lucky on a painting. It goes the right ways. We got a million brushstrokes that we put in every painting, or 1,000 brushstrokes that we put in every painting. And sometimes we're not sure how it got to that end product that we really like, right? The more we learn, the less it's about luck and the more it's about skill, right? But this person was so afraid to do anything because it was that idea, that fixed idea of luck was a big part of their process. And it was, it becomes detrimental at that point, like holding you back. I like making bad paintings. You know, because what is bad? I mean, all the quote unquote bad paintings I've made, a lot of people look at them and go, oh my God, I love that painting. So bad is like very subjective, number one. But if I make something that I don't like, it's definitely something that's screaming at me and saying, hey, this is, you don't like this, figure out why, right? Because it's telling you about your next level. Telling you about what didn't go right in that painting, just so on the next one you can make it right. Yeah. Another person online. Yo, Chris. Hey, another person. Thank you. Welcome. You're welcome, Michael. Thank you, Chris. He says, I agree. You got to take chances. Definitely. I will try it. Yeah, take those chances. That's a good one. I mean, because, okay. I'm not sure how old you are, Michael, but think about it this way. Here's another way of like going into it. I'm pretty sure you have a whole bunch more paintings left in you, right? I know I got a whole bunch more paintings left in me. So what's one bad painting? Okay. Let's do a bunch of bad paintings. I like how I was reading Van Gogh the Life. I read it years ago. I did the audiobook because it's a massive book. It's the book to read if you want to know everything about Van Gogh, his entire life. There was one point when, you know, he only sold one painting. I think that was at his death. I think. I'm not sure. Maybe close to his death. But like he said something like, oh, like every 20 paintings or so, I'll get someone interested in what I'm doing. And they'll look at my artwork. Because he was also communicating with his brother, who and you know, Anne Van Gogh worked in this because there was a big market for like reproductions of artwork, and there was these companies that would do nothing but reproductions of artwork so that people could own the reproduction, you know, these little small prints, and they were handmade, I think. I'm not sure about that, but don't quote me on it. But these reproductions people could buy and have in their home, like, you know, Raph and Medusa or something like that. I don't know, of painting. So his brother was working in that kind of field. And so whenever Van Gogh would do a painting, he would do a sketch of it or something like that, send it all to his brother. He's like, oh, here's the painting I did. Imagine that. Like you can't even take a picture of it. You got to do a sketch and like on a piece of paper and say, this is a painting I did. And then, his brother would show it to other people, and some people would be interested in some, and sometimes they wouldn't be interested at all. But Van Gogh was like, yeah, every 20 paintings or so, or 12, or I can't remember the number, I get somebody interested. He's like, maybe if I do 10 times more paintings, I'll get more interest. Because math, right? Of course you're going to get more interest, because if every 10 paintings or 12 paintings you get somebody to be interested in maybe buying your work, well, if I do 10 times more, that's going to increase the amount of people that are actually interested. It was like this practical thing that you never hear about with like Van Gogh, where he's like, yeah, I'm definitely wanting to sell some of this work. No one's interested in anything I'm doing. So let me just paint. Let me be even more prolific than I am right now. Let me paint like a painting every 2 days when I'm in France. And that's what he did. Huge paintings. Like crazy, crazy prolific. I have to be careful with using that word crazy, because he did go into I don't know what they called it at the time. Definitely went into a hospital for mental health. But of course, at the time, the mental health facilities were archaic, to say the least. Trying to get some of these shapes in here to look the way that I want them. But a lot of the strokes that I'm putting down, a lot of these strokes are not doing what I want. Now, and this is where Yupo paper gets really frustrating. Because if on Yupo paper, if I had this paint down and I just wanted to use what was down and just put a darker stroke over it, just like this stroke I put down, I would probably pick up most of that underneath paint. It would show a lot of the white through, and I would change that value completely. This is why, I remember now, this is why I moved to back to doing my own ground on these papers, PVA size on this one, 2 coats. Yeah, I'm not sure about that. Okay. This is a good size. I'm going to rethink how I'm working these strokes. And I'm going to think less about where the value is going. So for example, there's like this triangle shape that happens, a little bit darker value right under the earring, which I'm not going to put the earring in. It's very sharp lines and everything that I think that will bring focus away from what I want to focus on. So I was thinking about that shadow shape. So let me get it in one thing. So I put that stroke down. It's not really thinking about, it's thinking about value as a shape, as like a flat thing, but it's not really thinking about, okay, this is the mandible, and we have the side of the head, and then it's turning down and in, like it's going into the picture plane, and then down to a certain point, and then now we have the back of the neck, we have the trapezius muscles, and it goes around and back there. So I'm not thinking about those shapes on those strokes. So I'm going to change how I'm thinking on this for a few of these brush strokes. I see like a grayish blue with how this sternocleidomastoideus muscle kind of moves up into this area. A little bit lighter, a little bit bluer. Maybe even lighter than that. Bring in some white. I want it to stay cool, like a coolish color. If I go to green, that's fine. and I'm thinking about that muscle and like how it bulges, like the form of it itself. Like there's all of this stuff happening on our bodies where it can get really confusing because you have local colors that change all over the place, especially with this type of skin. A lot of variance in color. We get into alizarin up here, then it goes into like a yellow or reflected light, and then we have the color of the skin itself that's affecting that. So we have the shape, how things are moving through space, and then the local color of the skin and how that changes. It has variations throughout. And a lot of times it really confuses things. Like for example, on the painter's path, when I was, I'm doing the drawing course for painters, and I chose a pear specifically because at first I was trying to find apples as a simple object for beginning drawing, right? And the problem with apples, if there's so much variation in the skin of the apple, it would go from like very light to very dark, that it was confusing all of the values of that apple. And I'm like, no, I want to focus on how light moves over the form, not have that local color affect the value. Now, this is what's happening with skin tones, right? We will always have the local colors affect the values that are moving over it. I think, I don't talk a lot about anatomy, but in a lot of cases, anatomy really helps because when there's this confusion of coloration in here, but then you go, okay, I know there's two muscles coming up from the sternum, one going over to the right here, one going over to the left. And what comes right out of the center of those two sternocleidomastoideus muscles is the esophagus for a little bit, and then down into the chin, the skin of the chin that kind of flows into that esophagus. Oh, okay. That's given me a better understanding of why there's this little bit darker shape here. I did a class on New Masters Academy with Ray Bustos. And it was literally the best anatomy class that I have ever taken. I loved it. It was fantastic. And it was all surface anatomy, for painters. It got really confusing when we got to the forearms and we were looking at all the muscles in the forearms and things like that. But he would basically eviscerate the body and start with, I think that's the right word, where you take the skin off the body, basically. But he started with the bones and then started building muscles on top of that on a blackboard, drawing it out. I mean, he knows anatomy like crazy. And I looked recently, and that anatomy course is actually on Proco, which I think it's updated. But if it's Ray Bustos and he's giving it, it's going to be really great. So if you want to know anatomy, take that course and take it seriously and move through it in a way where you're repeating everything that he does. He makes a mark on a blackboard. Like I would do, because he would do layers. Like, let's start with the femur, right? And he would do the femur, like put the bone down. This is the shape of the femur and how it fits into the pelvis, right? This is the epicondyles. This is the head of it. This is this is that. This is what this joint looks like, how it moves in the body. And so, and that's how I would start on my sketchbook. I would draw out the femur exactly how he drew it. And then I would have tracing paper over that because he would start layering muscles on top of it. So I put a piece of tracing paper and I would do the quadricep, one of the quadriceps, and the second of the quadriceps, and the third and the fourth, all on layers of tracing paper over top of the bone. And man, that was so helpful for me to understand anatomy, musculature for the human body. And then the next level of that was, okay, I know all about these muscles. I just learned them. I did a bunch of overlays and tracing paper to get an understanding of them. Now I want to get some reference images of real people. I don't know why I said real people. Well, I guess, at that time there was no AI, but so that, you know, real people now we have to think about, you know, is that a real image of a real person? So get a good reference image of people and then look for those muscles that I was just studying. Oh, especially on because we can look at like super muscular men and we can see delineations of every single muscle. They're doing bodybuilding, which is about delineating all these little muscles in the body. That's what bodybuilding's about, and they'll change up like their fat content by dieting and things like that. So they get striations on this particular muscle and all this other stuff. And with those bodies, it's like, oh, this is a lot easier to see this muscle or that muscle. But then you'll go to like an image of a very thin woman and you're like, where is your quadriceps? Like, I don't even see it. It's just like one big cylinder of the leg, the top of the leg. But you have to look and you look for these like very subtle values. And then you go, oh, okay, there it is, kind of hidden, very hidden, but I can kind of see where it is. Or older individuals where the musculature has kind of deteriorated over time, right? And looking in those very subtle places and beginning to understand, not just like a particular muscular body just for like comic books and things like that, because it's nothing but muscular in there, right? But if, and not that there's anything wrong with comic books, what I'm saying is that I knew that I would be faced with all different types of bodies throughout my life. So I wanted to understand the muscles beyond just like this comic book understanding of it. So really good course. Ray Bustos. I don't know what the course is called in Proco, but just look for his name. I think it's Bustos for anatomy. Super helpful. I probably don't give as much credit to that anatomy course and to how well I can draw, well, somewhat well I can draw the body right now, because I think maybe a lot of credit is due there. I'm talking about all kinds of different stuff today. So please interrupt me with any questions you have of what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, what's the next painting, what's the weather like. I don't care. Anything. Almost anything. If we get into political stuff, that's going to be a problem. I like to stay away from those topics because I don't know anything about it. Okay. This edge of the neck here is catching a little bit of light, and it's a cooler light, so it kind of goes to gray. I got the angle of that correct. So drawing value temperature. Honestly, that might be, no, the value's too light there. Need to darken it up. Drawing value temperature. I think that might be what my brain thinks about 95% of the time. Putting the stroke down in the right place. Does it have the right value? Does it have the right temperature? I don't even think about hue anymore. I'm already in the kind of warm hemisphere. I'm in that area. I'm close enough, right? Now it's more about, is it warmer? Is it cooler? Is it bluish green? Is it warm green? Bluish red? All those kind of things. Yeah, that might be what's thought about the most, at least in my head. Another person online asks, Chris, do you use directional lights to light my paper? Yeah. Um, I can give you the specifics on the lights that I use because I had similar lights before, but they weren't bright enough. So the lights that I use are from GVM, which stands for Great Video Maker, and they're inexpensive. And I'm going to get deep into light here. Okay, lights for that I use to light my canvas, right? Um, First, I want to grab a gray. Look at this. Look, I want to show you guys this sidetrack. When you're not paying attention to your brushes, I just want to show you, you're not paying attention to the colors in your brushes. You're just picking up willy-nilly. All these brushes are almost exact same color. I mean, if I was more organized, each one would be like, okay, this is my bluer tone. This is my gray tone. This is for this. This is for that. But no, I'm not paying attention. But first, before I talk about lights, I have this idea for this shirt that I want to jump into just for a second to see if it's going to work. Because it's maybe even lighter than that. This value has to be super light, I think. Because I like this curve of this shirt right here. It tells me about the shoulder curving back, right? That little curve there, a little bit of skin and light showing through. And it says, hey, I'm something different as well because we're into a different color. Separates the background from the figure. And it will be what separates these fingers from the shirt itself. Yeah, it's not bad. Okay, I like that. So I want to get the... Yeah, but it's great video maker GVM lights, but it has to be more specific than that. I took a picture of the back of these lights because I was going to do a video on it. I need to find that photo. I took it like weeks ago, I think. I'm just flipping through my photos, which I'm not going to show on screen because, yeah, it's a lot of personal photos, right? Don't want to do that. Don't want to show all my personal stuff. It's not that personal, to be honest. I'm not like taking pictures of nudes. What you'll see is like a million cats. So here we go. Take a screenshot of this when I show it to you. Oh, my address is probably needs to not show there, but anyway. So GVM 560AS. And they're bicolor lights, so they can go from 2300K to 6800K. And now this was a set of 2 lights. You can't really see them on this camera here because I have them like really high up. And there's one here, bam. And then there's one way back here, this guy. And maybe I'll show my face so you can see that bigger. So one here and then one over here. So 2 lights and they're facing down this way. And I keep them around 5,000 Kelvin, 5,100 Kelvin. The only problem that I've seen with these lights is the whole Kelvin thing. Oh, geez. Did my computer die? No, I'm here. No, my keyboard died. What is going on? Reconnect, please. Bluetooth. Still have problems with Bluetooth all these years later. What was I talking about? The lights. Yeah, okay. Hopefully you got that that model number. But it's a set of lights. I got that set because they get a lot brighter than other dual sets. GVM 560AS. I'll just throw it in chat real quick. So GVM 560AS. So that's the model number right there. Yeah. I like those because they're bicolor. You can adjust the Kelvin 2300 to 6800. I keep the Kelvin around 5000, 5100. Oh, that's what I was going to say. The only problem I found with these lights is that 5100 Kelvin is not 5100 Kelvin. Because when I set my camera to 5100K, like everything is too warm. I end up setting it down to like 4300K to get a similar look on the color. It's not a big deal, you know. They're LED lights. They don't get really hot, which is nice. And they work really well. Like right now, each one is set to like 70% because you can adjust the brightness on them. And the two lights are essential, in my opinion. Having two lights on your painting, you can't just have one, or you could, but the problem you'll run into if you only have one, I'm going to show you this. See the shadow that's cast with my brush when I put it here? Not too bad, right? Because I have two lights. Let me turn off this light. Look at that shadow. I'm in shadow too, but like, and trying to paint like that, where you're casting this big dark shadow, is a problem. So two lights, one, and they'll both fill in the shadow shapes, because you'll see, you know, I'll cast shadows on both sides, right? You can see how those cast in. So they'll fill in those shadow shapes with more light. And the absolute best placement for lights up above and as close to your painting as possible. Okay. I want you to see this. This is super important. So if you're not looking at my screen and you want to know how to remove glare while you're painting, this is the way to do it. You see my, this is my, you know, drafting table, right? It's a big board. Let me move my monitor down so you can see all the way to the bottom of it. Now this light is like right here. It's not back behind me, you know, really far away from my painting, my drafting board. No, it's as close to it as I can get. It passes through like this, you know, the side of it right there. Super close to my painting. Okay. It's like the light is raking across your painting from either side. If you go online and you search for how to remove glare from oil painting, you're going to get diagrams of photographers that tell you, put your lights at a 45-degree angle from your painting. And you know what? You're going to get nothing but a tremendous amount of glare all over your painting when you do that. And you're going to go, what are you talking about? This is not working. It never works. And I thought I was crazy because I moved my lights directly like in front of my painting, like as close to it as possible. And I'm like, look, there's no glare here. No one online is telling me to do this. That's why I need to make a video of this. But it works. And then one day I was talking with Greg Manchester during the mentorship I was on. I'm like, hey, how do you keep glare off of your oil paintings when you're painting? And he said, move your lights as close to your canvas as possible and have them rake across the canvas. I was like, yes, that's what I've been doing. I knew it was right. And now I'm confirmed by a painter in the Illustration Hall of Fame. So yeah, hopefully that's helpful. Let me know if you need more details on that. And I know you'll probably look at the lights and you'll go, wow, those are expensive. But they're not. I think I got them for like $250, $300 for both, for the set. My most favorite lights I ever had. And, you know, we moved back from Hawaii because we lived in Hawaii for a while and we were trying to save money. So I got rid of everything. We got rid of everything when we moved back. And I got rid of the best light I've ever had, which is an Aperture 200D or something light. Like this is like a professional video light, and it had a really big light box dome over it, like a circular dome, really big one, you know? diffused the light perfectly. I mean, the Kelvin on it was absolutely spot on. Um, man, and I could light my subject, or I could light my painting really well with that nice subtle light over the whole painting. No glare, no nothing. And like, if I were to get some extra money, I would buy two more of those and put those on either side. Those are like the best lights. I'm not really liking what that scar's doing. It feels too much like paint on top of more paint. This is a point, I think, in this painting where I really want that to feel um, like it's less paint and more the body, more the subject. And I've talked about this before where in a lot of instances, I'm like, no, I just want that to look like paint first and then say finger afterwards, right? Where there's that difference. But on this one, no, it's important to get the subtlety within this. So when I think about things like this, when I go, that looks just like paint on top of other paint, but I want it to look like the subject. The first thing that my brain goes to as far as adjustment to change that up is like, okay, where are my values at? Where is the drawing at? What is the subtleties within all of this? How the edges change, the edges of this scar versus the sternocleidomastoideus muscle, the shapes of those, and getting very specific within all these subtle changes within values and edges. I mean, if you want your painting to look exactly like what you're painting, like you're going for this way of painting where you don't want the evidence of a brushstroke to be available. You want it to look like exactly what it's looking like. Then, for the most part, you'll have to run into a lot of blending, a lot of edge work, a lot of texture work where you're really looking at specifics within textures and values. So I'm grabbing another brush. This is a very splayed Monarch, Winsor Newton Monarch brush. It's so splayed that it's almost too splayed. I'm getting individual hair marks rather than something a little bit softer. And I'm just thinking about texture here and softening things out. Yeah, it's picking up more paint than it's putting down because of it's so splayed and there's so much paint down already. But that's okay. I can use these multiple hairs just like Andrew Wyeth did. Because he painted with a lot of egg tempera dry brush. Like a million different strokes on one painting, like little tick marks all over the place. And so he would utilize the multitude of all these hairs in one brush to make 12 strokes at once, 12 little brush marks at once. Chris, when did you realize I can do this art thing for a living? Oh, still trying to figure that out. I mean, I guess to be a bit more specific with that question, if I was to change your question, excuse me for being so presumptuous that I can change your question up. I think when did I think that I could make enough money to live on my artwork? Last year, what was it, 2025 or 2024? I think it was, no, last year I did about 10K in sales in art alone throughout the year. Of course, it was probably like 6K of supplies. And I was like, okay, that's not enough to live on. Definitely not. But it's the most I've ever made. I think was last year. And the only reason why that was the only year is because that was the year that I was like, I'm going to show everywhere and anywhere I can, and put up as many paintings for sale as I can and just let them go. And I think that was pretty much the impetus of it. What really helped was not enjoying my job anymore. You know, the route that I was taking was this. Don't worry about the art making money. Get a job that you enjoy. Let that make all the money for you and your partner. And then do the painting and stuff that you want to paint, right? Do what you want to do. But, the job ran its course and I wasn't having fun with it anymore. I wasn't enjoying it. It was more of a pain to go into work than it was to not do it. And so, for years we were saving in this idea that I would quit my job and do this art thing full time. And it was after I felt like, being in this area where very supportive local area of artists gave me the impetus to feel like maybe I can make a living from it. Sorry, looking for a very specific brush. And so those two things kind of came together and I was like, okay, let's do this. And the practicals come into this. I'd say we'd saved up enough money so that in a year or so, if we're still having trouble, like if I'm not making any money, enough money, because I am making money, right? I am doing good things here. But in a certain amount of time, if I don't make X, then I have to go find another job. So there is a time frame to this. And I'm working hard at it. It isn't like I'm just sitting around all day, not doing anything. I'm painting, I'm doing the mentorships, the classes, painter's path, doing local classes, things like that. So it was a multitude of things, very practical things. Yeah, no. That's not working. That's not working. That's looking terrible. That's reminding me of, I need to look at this real quick. It's reminding me of the painting with the knife that we were doing together, where I was having a lot of trouble with the hands. I started to get too specific and it was looking terrible. Yes, right here. Like, I'm going to show my screen. Again, the importance of keeping track. So yeah, this session on these hands, not looking so good. I was getting, at this point I started to get really detailed. And then even the next session. Oh no, that was previous, not next. Oh, that got broken. Interesting. Okay, I'm so confused. Where am I? Let's go back to just daily art. It all looks the same. Right here, this session. I think this session is where I was just like, because I started doing all of the work on these fingers and then I just started scraping stuff out because I wasn't liking it at all. Yeah. That's what this is feeling like right now. And what was the fix on that? What was the fix? Think of bigger shapes, bigger shapes. So I want that scar to look more like it's part of the neck. But that's not the way to go at it. That is not the way to go at it. Not at all. Very subjective things. Looking at this for, what I feel about it. Anybody else could look at this and go, oh, it's fine. And that, it'd be great. That would be great for them. But not, I'm feeling a little bit different on that. Okay. So I'm going to go back to a bigger brush and I'm thinking about the bigger shapes again. And then I'm going to try and affect this texture in a more simple way. There was a painting that I did years ago. It was me and Kitty, the kid, the cat that we had at the time. He's since passed away. He passed away in 22. Still love you, Kitty. I'm a cat lover. Hope you guys already know that. But anyway, I did a painting with him because it was me and him because he was always on my desk all the time, right? Just like Vincent here now. Um, and it really became apparent to me within that painting of how important texture was because I was wearing this kind of sweater thing, plus I had jeans, plus my skin, plus there was my computer monitor was in the background, and then Kitty, and then the desk, and then a chair, and everything had this different texture to it. Like texture was the biggest thing, and I was like, I need to paint my hand in a way so that the texture of it is different than the sleeve of this sweater. Because if I paint both of them and the texture looks exactly the same, I haven't done this painting justice. And so it was at that point, that was too dark, too dark. Come on, lighten it up. Need to gray it out too. So it was this deeper understanding of, how to take that painting, all based in texture, the texture of all these different objects. And I'm like, okay, what is texture? Like, when you think about that word texture, what is it? Because we have to think about it in this way. We have to think about it in fundamental terms because we have hairs on the end of a stick and rocks crushed into oil. Okay. And that's what we're painting with. So when you say texture, well, I guess it's all about edges. Yeah, pretty much all about edges. So I had to get, not only edges like on the side of a form, but also inside the form, right? Like how the edges of texture would change inside um, the sweater, right? Versus, what does the edge of the sweater look like? The contour of the sweater versus the form of the sweater and how that texture would change. That's what this is here, texture. It's just all about texture in those areas. It's something that I haven't really done a lot of thought about recently. This is going to challenge me in a lot of ways. I can feel it already. And that's good. That's good. Come on, challenges. Through those challenges is where our next, increase in skill happens. We're on the plateau, then we run into a painting that's really kicking our butt. After we do that and the next painting afterwards, we learn from it, repeat it on the next painting. Then we see this like huge spike in skill. That's what I'm hoping for. I like looking at some paintings and going, that was the painting where I changed. I went from this artist to a different artist. Chris says, yeah, it looks good. You got the colors good. Thank you. Appreciate that. I think I'm getting close. I'm going to pause for a second as well because I feel a need to really think about that background. I'm at a point where I need to make a determination if the background's going to go in or not. Because as soon as you say you got the colors good, um, I'm thinking colors relative, and they do feel really well within them, feel pretty good within themselves. And I'm pretty sure if I put this background in, it's not going to make too much of a difference to the coloration there. I think it's pretty good, but I want to see, like, if I bring in that green, I don't want it that bright. I mean, look how bright this green is in the background. Look at that. Like when you look at that green, after you look at it, you're like, you can't unsee it. It's like this super intense thing. So, and that's not the focal point. Over here on this side, these greens over here are a lot more subdued. Like that's what feels better, you know, because then the intensity comes back into the ear, into the face, and everything like that. Yeah, these fundamental concerns of telling stories is so much fun. Like, don't do the green because that takes focus. Like, let's put a super bright green back there. Well, if you want people to look at the background more than the ear and the scar and the head and everything, then yeah, then you put it there. But if you don't want them to look back there, then let's keep that gray. But do I want to put the background in? Yeah, I think it needs it. I really do. I really think it needs it. And I have all this red up in here with some like warmish yellow. I think we're going to use that. And either my partner is home for lunch from work or someone is breaking into the house. So one of the two. I'm going to go with the former rather than the latter. And like I'm trying to mine out what yellow is left, and all I'm getting are big chunks of paint. So, Chris, come on. Come on. Put more paint down. Stop being lazy. Even on your white. Look at that white. It's just destroyed. There we go. Clean it up. Create a space for mixing. Another reason why I love just simple glass palette, because can quickly get back to the palette. Okay. White. And where's my yellow? So the Phoenix lemon yellow hue. It's a good color. It's a good paint. I like this paint. I wish it didn't dry as fast though. It does, I end up losing a lot of the paint that I put on my palette because it dries a little bit too fast. Even the yellow dries really fast. But the good thing about it, the painting dries really fast too. So that's good. So yellow and blue make green. Oh, that's Vinny at the door. Hold on one second, guys. Hi, is that you? I thought someone was breaking in. He was pawing at the door. I thought someone was breaking in, about to come in and steal you away because you're the most valuable thing in here. They look at my paintings and go, no. But they say, look at that cat. That cat is awesome. That's what we want. We take you home. Yeah, the green definitely draws your eye. Totally, totally. And if I put this green down, I think that's too much still. Let's really gray it out. Let's go black and white in it. Bring it down. Like that's as intense as I want it to get. I know. I love you, Bubby. Maybe even less. Add white to it. White's a neutralizer. It brings it to the center of the color wheel. Always think about that. White and black are colors. They have all the aspects of color that everything has. Most of the stuff that I say, guys, is for me. It's like a reminder for me. Black and white has a color. It has value, it has a hue, and it has saturation. And it's pretty easy on all of those because saturation for black and white is 0. It's the most neutral paints you can get. Black and white are super neutral. Of course, you know, Payne's gray is going to be closer to blue. Ivory black is going to be a little bit warmer than that. You know, different titanium whites, you know, get a little bit warmer. So temperature changes through that happen. Okay, stop being so fiddly with the edges. Paint the foreground into the background, Chris. You know this. You know this. You need more paint as well. Always paint your foreground into your background. And then recover your foreground with more paint, okay? If you don't do that, you're going to, if you're like very timid, you don't want to screw up your edges. I understand. I've been there a million times, a bunch of times. It's oil paint. You can recover it. But if you paint right up to an edge, like if you like this neck here, if I paint right up to this edge, you're going to get this like really sharp line. And it flattens everything out. This guy is crazy. I know. You're all over me. Yay, Vincent is here. So you get this really flat edge. And that's not how forms work. Right on the edge of forms, it really fuzzes out a little bit because we got a turn of that form. So just go ahead and like drag it over the edge of that form. You see how it softens it out a little bit? Gets a little bit more three-dimensional there. It is a very subtle thing, but I'm telling you, our eyes are adjusted to that and we know it. Buddy. You must be starving. Okay, just purr into the mic. He has a loud purr. You're welcome. Cats with Chris. I've tried to paint cats. I love cats, but I just don't. I'm all about the human body. More interested in that. So what Vincent is doing here, and I have to like kind of break here. So what Vincent is doing is we've trained him. Okay, I'm not asking for it right now. We've trained him with kisses. So if I ask him, if I'll say the K word, he'll give me kisses on my nose, and then we go get food because that. And we're also training brushing teeth here as well. Yeah, that's a new thing. I'm going to get to it. Okay, so let's show everybody your training. If I can go to the side here. Here, go to the side so we can see, or maybe this side. Let's go this way. I know it's going to be different. Okay, you ready? We're going to perform. Don't bite me. That's the other thing. He tends to want to bite. Okay, kisses. You bet. No bites. Kisses. No, you're biting. Kisses. No, you have to lick. Kisses only. No, he's not doing it right. Kisses. Kisses. Okay, that's good. I got kisses. Okay, I'll be right back, guys. Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, he got me good. Look. We're training him on that. So for kisses, every now and then he gets a little bit too bitey. Okay, let's darken that up a bit. He's very, very food motivated. Okay. The green looks pretty good, especially if I keep it in this center band here. Keep it away from this top corner and that corner. I think it's going to be good. I'm going to try and bring in some of the darker value in that background. Today is one of those streams where I'm thinking about my friend Pam. And she has complained about people on streams before that just go off in tangents. And she's impatient. She's like, would you just please talk about what you're doing about on the painting? Jeez, get back to it. Today is one of those streams where I'm pissing off Pam. Okay, so not too dark. You see how I made that? It's very dark back here on the reference, but I don't want it that dark. We're going to paint into and over everything. Too sharp, too sharp. There we go. I like how, you know, I was using a 50mm lens, a fast lens. It's about 1.4 aperture or something. I forget what you call it. I am not a photographer. I try to be a photographer. I'm dangerous with a camera. But anyway, so the focal length on that lens was really small, right? Not small enough where you'd only get like maybe the chin and the back of the neck would be out of focus. Not that small, but small enough so the background is very fuzzy. You know, it's definitely a portrait lens that lends itself well to a portrait lens. But, you know, looking at whatever foliage or whatever is back here, and then taking a lot of clues from how the camera pretty much simplified things, it's pretty nice. And I like to do this in a way, like I actually like that little bit of dark right under the chin there. Like I'd like to simplify things in a way that doesn't use like a very soft brush just to fade things out, just to soften it, like overly soften textures. To me now, like I used to do that, but to me now it looks so fake. It doesn't look, I don't know. Like it looks a bit more real to me if I utilize, you know, instead of softening everything, if I find like a mid-tone value between each of these colors, like the lighter green and the darker green. Let me lighten it up just a little bit. Oh, too much. Man, that white just kills my colors. You know, like a mid-tone there. And then I can go through a lot of these edges where it's like the dark against the light, you know, and I try to soften out as much as I can. You see how this is just two colors here. We have this kind of light green color, grayish green, and a darker one. But if I put the brushstroke down really lightly with not a lot of paint, I get a whole different value and I get a softness and texture, okay? Now I can do that even further if I mix up a kind of mid-tone between them. And then I go next to these edges with another light brush. Still a little sharp on that edge. And I can break up how that value changes. And soften those edges with definite brushwork. Not trying to do like an arbitrary, like let's get like this super soft brush out and just soften it in this way. I still love this idea of like, hey, it's paint. It's still paint back here. And it looks more real when it's, I don't know how to explain it more than that. It just looks more authentic and real if it still has that evidence of brush within it. Like, yes, it's a brush and yes, it's paint. Now, because I could easily, or maybe not easily, famous last words, Um, trying to find a really soft brush. Here, I'll use one of these. I'll try it. I'll throw some super softness down. This has some paint in it I'm trying to get out right now. I could take this splayed out brush. That's usually what I use these brushes for, but I haven't done it in forever. And I can just like lightly go over these areas, like whispering over this paint, you know, back and forth and softening things out. And I guess it, it doesn't look too bad in some places, but when we do it way too much, it just looks too fakey to me. I don't know. It doesn't look right. So we have to be careful with it. There's a little bit of specifics in softening things out as well. Did you change your brush for background because different hue? No, I didn't. I had one that was a bit into yellow, and with some red, and I wanted to go into like a grayish green anyways. And so I used that yellowish red that was already in the brush as the neutralizer for the green that I was going to mix up. It's complementary. Green's complementary would or the red, which is green's complementary, would bring the green more gray. So I just used what was in that brush. Now, I'm sure that that was a brush that I was using on the neck. Now that I don't have it, it's all green. I would probably have to, I couldn't go back. There's too much green in this brush. Or maybe there's not. Maybe this green would look good in a place. Like right here on the edge. Like maybe the neck is catching some of that green there. Ooh, I even like that kind of line that it made. It's almost like a movement line that's happening on the edge there. Yeah, it's not too bad. That green comes in handy. You see how it's pretty soft over here, soft, and then too sharp over here. Like there's a distance difference that happens. Like that's a bit further back. That's really close up. So let's get in and massage this a bit. Let's bring it into the face as well. Yeah, that's even better. And all this is texture. It's just, the focus here, edges, texture is the same word. You want to have a different texture between like a countertop and a glossy apple and, hand on an apple versus, the car that the hand is sitting on. Texture, edges within your brushstrokes. It's a good question about changing brushes. I do not, or at least today, I haven't been very good at organizing my brushes well. The last painting, I was really good on it. I was taking my time with every single brushstroke I put down, and you could tell it was like really organized in the palette and on the painting. And what if this gray background comes back in? Or the lighter area in this background comes back in? Maybe not. See, there we go. That did not work out well. No worries. Let's bring it back. That was something that Greg Manchess told us was the best painters are the painters that could like have everything go wrong in their painting and still find a way to make it work. Like keep working it and what was the words he used? I can't remember exactly, but do a lot of problem solving and get it back. The best painters can do that. And I'm like, yeah, I could see that. I could see that. His words, not mine. That value is too great. The difference between this value and that value is too great. I just said the same thing twice, but in different ways. So now it makes more sense, right? Yeah. So too much high contrast between these two. And that brings it forward. Now there's too much attention there. The edges were sharp. I softened the edges, but the value is still too bright here where I scraped out. So it's bringing things forward. So instead of a value change, which there will be some value change, I'm going for a color change. So I'm doing like, or more like a hue change, a temperature change. So it's going more into gray here. And I need to paint it into the green at the background. See how that pushed it way back. I just got to fix those edges now. I find it really interesting that we can say distance with texture. You can say, hey, this is right up against you. This is right next to the picture plane. And this thing is like 200 miles away. And the difference, value, texture. You know, you look at mountains in the background, you know, you have this huge landscape and you got, you know, these blue mountains in the background that are so close to the color of the sky. And, you know, that's what tells the eye, I'm way back in the distance, that very close value range. I want to fade these tops out a little bit further. So I got a lighter value and I'm throwing it down there. Oof. Perfect place for the finger right here. Gonna give it the finger. Okay. Chris says, I don't know when I'm going to start this painting. Right now. Start it right now. With no regards with your life or what you're doing or what you have going on today, Chris is going to tell you to start it right now. So unhelpful. Okay. A good session on this painting today. I think I got a lot placed. I think there's a lot of problems still to work out. I haven't gotten any closer to thinking or to figuring out how to translate helplessness, caring, and introspection into paint. So those very difficult words to transfer into paint, I haven't gotten closer to what the fundamentals of that is going to look like. But what I have down is looking pretty good. I think it's a good start. And this, the more I look at this digitally, this scar here, I think it does look a lot better. That little end needs to be better. The separation of that finger as well. You know, the finger and neck become one there, and I want to keep those separated. I like that well, what's really important is that these are fingers touching the neck. That's important. It's really important for the narrative. So if it's not separated because the values are too close or because the shadow shapes aren't right there, then I need to fix that. So that's going to be important. I like a lot of the coloration within here. There is, you see that highlight under the chin? I could probably bring that up in value. The cool thing about highlights and that what I really like about using a paper that doesn't have a lot of absorption is we have two ways of lightening up paint, making it brighter, bringing the value up. That's a better way of saying it. I could put down a stroke of lighter yellowish orange color there, right? Or I can scrape it off. But I scraped here and I saw how far it went back. So if I scrape there with the same method, it's going to get too light, too bright. But we can do it in more subtle ways. We can take the paint off in subtle ways. The best way to take paint off without using a palette knife is to use a brush that doesn't have any paint on it. So, and a hog's hair bristle brush that's kind of old is going to make a very different texture there than like this brush, which is flat and very soft brush. It will make a different texture than, man, I don't have a lot of like filbert brushes at all. I just went all flats. Where's a filbert? Come on. Yeah, I need more brushes. More and more. More brushes all the time. Yeah, if I had a filbert brush here, it would make another different texture. So which one do I want to go with? I don't know. What's this guy? No, not that one. Such a exciting stream. We sat there for 10 minutes while this guy was looking for a brush, a very specific brush. I'm going to go with this one. Okay. I want to take some of this paint off, but I want it to be, I want to do this all in one stroke. And there's this shape on the shape at the end of the chin. It's an interesting triangle. Can I do that all in one? Let's see. We'll start on the left side because it's going to start sharp there and then scrape down. Turn the brush to thin it up. Not too bad, right? Not too bad. Shape isn't quite there. And it's a little bit lighter value than even I wanted with that. So I can probably put some very light paint down, figure out the top of this chin a bit better as well. Oh, see, disorganized brushes. Just going to end up wasting a lot of paint. Oh no, that color's not too bad. A little bit of black to neutralize it, make it darker. But that went too gray. Okay. Maybe that. Getting closer. No, I don't think that shape is quite what I want. There's going to be a lot more work in there to figure that out. But I wanted to show you that. I wanted to show you, because I've talked several times today on the stream about texture and about how the implements that we're using, right? The hairs on the end of a stick. I think sitting there with every painting you're doing and thinking about trying to describe a shape with one stroke, like thinking, okay, how could I make this texture, this edge happen with one movement? Shaping the paint on the brush, shaping the brush itself as you're mixing. How you start the stroke, how you end the stroke, where your hand is. It sounds complicated, but the more you paint, you're like, oh, okay, I understand how to use this brush in like 50 different ways, right? A lot of times, I mean, I can talk about these things that are very nuanced and probably most of the time it doesn't make sense. And even if it did, I think the only way to really understand it is to like try it yourself, really. But to understand like, oh, I can do so much more with just one brush, with just one implement. I don't need, 50 different shapes of brushes. I can do it all with this one. It just depends on, how I can manipulate it. Like if you're working on paintings and you're like, oh, well, let me try and get this texture down. Can I do it this way? Let me try and scrape the brush up against the bristles. I mean, most of the time when we're painting, we're doing this. We're like taking the brush and it's with the bristles, right? And we're going down, down, down. We can even do like a line or whatever. But you get a completely different thing if you go against the bristles and you're doing it that way, how you're pushing the paint along. It's a completely different way of mark making. And that's what we're doing throughout everything, is just mark making. The more you do that, the more you understand, like, okay, all I need to do on this brush stroke, keep most of the paint in the brush, just wipe probably 50% of the paint out of the brush. So it's a little bit drier, okay? And then go into with the corner of the brush and that space, utilize the paints already down, and then bam, okay, I got what I wanted from that. But all of these little nuances with not just putting paint down, but taking paint off or moving the paint around that's on the canvas. It's a different way. Like if I added a lighter color to try and get like white to it, or a yellow and a white to it to get that lighter color, it wouldn't glow as much. It's a very different look to have the white of the paper show through the paint than it is for you to actually paint the value that you want. Hopefully that makes sense. What brush did I just throw down? Was it this one? Yeah. I see that it's lighter over here as well. So I want to take some paint off. I'm going to do it again up here, but not a lot. So dry brush, not a lot of paint in it. As I pulled off paint there with that stroke, I use my paper towel to pull off that paint off the brush so it's dry again, so I can go back into it, just barely touching, softening this out as well as I'm pulling paint off the surface. What I'm doing is I'm unearthing the paper a little bit, removing the paint so some of that paper shows through, gets a little bit more lighter in value. It glows a little bit more. And that's more like reflected light, right? It's a little bit lighter in value. It's got kind of a glow to it. Especially if, it's yellow, if something that's yellow is kind of reflecting up into their chin. Completely different look right there. Kind of liking that softness, even though I was denigrating that softness earlier. Kind of like it there. And I see a green here. It's right where there's a definite vein passing over the chin here, over the mandible, and then up under the skin. And because there's, blue and yellow, it's a bit of a green that comes in there, which is kind of cool looking. I love pulling in those colors, those kinds of colors where I know I've seen some artists paint and, they just focus on the value of things. They mix up all their skin tones and it's just this perfect gradation from lighter skin tone to darker skin tone. And I've I've had my opinions on this before and expressed them on the stream, and it's more like, okay, you need to wake up and actually look at what you're painting. Look at your reference. That's blue, and that's green, and that's orange, and that's bright yellow. And yes, it's all skin. It's all Caucasian skin. It's still there. And before I end the stream, I want to put down some lighter values in a couple places. All of a sudden, I feel this need right here on the top of the lip. It's nice that it's white paper. I like that it's white paper, but I think it needs my maul stick. I think it needs to be paint here. And then up at the top, fade into just white paper, that like higher value. Why do I think it needs that? Like, how can I explain like that choice? It's another reason why I like these streams is because I'm always thinking about like the language that I have to put to a lot of things that kind of come naturally sometimes. Like, this feels like it needs to be this way. Well, how can someone else benefit from that? What's the language that surrounds that? It felt like, well, I wanted that change in temp, a change in value on light. Light falls off, right? There's always going to be, you have your highlight, you have your center light, you have your halftone, then you have your shadow, and then in the shadow is all kinds of stuff, right? And it will always fall off in certain ways on an object. So it's definitely brighter up here on the forehead than it is even right here, like on the side of the head, pretty close to it. That light falls off, gets a little bit brighter here, definitely not near as bright on the nose and all the different shapes within there, right? So I feel a need to express that fall of light, that increase or decrease in value as the light drops down to the bottom of the head. And that's going to be really fun to do. All within the nose and this cheek, and then just to let it go, let it all go at the top there. Just let it open up into air and nothing. That's going to be fun. Look how intense that pink is. Let's put it on the lip, see what happens. Oof, too intense. Some days I have this problem where it's hard for me to stop painting. And it is a problem because I know, how much stamina I have for this art thing. Actually, one day I want to focus on increasing that stamina so I can get up to like 4 hours of painting a day with no problem. That would be really nice. But right now I know that I'm around 2 hours probably before I start to lose stamina and need like a break. 2 hours continually every single day. I think I can sustain. Yeah, that's better there. That is better there. Oh, see, I see this line here. See this like dark and then that line there. I don't want that for tomorrow. I'm afraid that this will get too dry before tomorrow, and that sharp line will be hard to pull out. So I'm just going to take a soft brush and kind of blend these in together. I do like this brush stroke here. It's just like unapologetically just right over that, where there's a bit of dark, like half tone there. Just throw it down. I'd love to like keep that throughout the entirety of the painting, like all the way to the end of the painting. That would be kind of fun. Just my little happy slapdash moment. Yeah. Okay. Looking good. I'm happy with the session. Still got a lot to figure out on this painting, but I think it looks pretty good. Okay. Thank you guys for joining me. Go to my website. I always have to like darken it out with my hand. I could make that a little bit darker or brighter, but I don't. Go to my website, chrisbevan.com, to see everything I do. One-on-one mentorships. Actually, August 1st, in just a couple days, the mentorship with Mastrius is going to be starting. And I only have one person signed up there. So if you like group mentorship, check out Mastrius. You can see that on my website, right at the bottom of the page, to check that out. Yeah, the Painter's Path is going on strong. Every Sunday, I'm working on beginning drawing 4 painters. We did 2 sessions. And I think we're going to start adding in more sessions throughout the week on that, so I can get videos up on the Painter's Path a lot faster, or here on YouTube. You can watch them both places. To support me, the Painter's Path, on my website, chrisbevan.com, right there. Yeah, that's all the spiel I have for you. Thank you so much for showing up, for asking questions, for being here, for taking this journey with this new painting that I have in all my paintings. I really appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful rest of your Tuesday. Bye-bye.